Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Mystery Theory podcast. Today, we're going to talk about an unsolved mystery, but I would call it a popular case. You probably heard about it if you watched the documentary Tiger King, which I haven't watched, by the way, but I did my research based on articles, interviews, documentaries, and not so much because of the Netflix series. However, I know how Netflix works. They always try to find the one person they think that needs to be the bad guy, and I talked about this in other cases that I shared. And I feel like in the Ray Rivera's case, you probably remember that if you're subscribed to my channel, they were trying to make his friend and boss the bad guy. And then after the documentary came out, the guy came out and said, well, here, there's proof that I actually was helping the police. There's proof that I was making an effort and there's nothing to hide. I actually thought that he took his own life, and that's why I've never thought there would be an unsolved mystery, and that's why I didn't want to be part of that. So I feel like whenever I watch a Netflix documentary, sometimes they make it in a way that they are trying to give you the key, the answer. Who's the bad guy? Who's the good guy? Who is being punished for this, and all those things that I rather, know the facts and, I don't know, find out for myself who I think. If it's an unsolved mystery, if there's evidence out there, I think that Netflix takes the time to chew all that information, and once it's processed by them, they want to feed it to you. It's just my idea and my thoughts and what I feel in some of these documentaries. So I thought, let me do a podcast where we can talk about the disappearance of Don Lewis. We can talk about Carole Baskin, which is such a character, and we can talk about Joe Exotic too, and how this three now, I don't want to call them characters, but Don Lewis. They kind of are in the story, the Tiger King series. Let's put it that aside. Everything that you probably and how they meet this case, and how. And by the way, their lives. This happened so as the pandemic was barely starting. It's actually a pretty, I feel like, interesting story. So I thought I shared with you today, and I'll try to deliver it in a way that I can encourage, even though it was recommended to me and to make up your times, I haven't. So I know that most of you probably watched it, that it was kind of a bonding moment on social media when we were growing apart physically. So I think it's also part of this 2020 that is about to end. Hopefully in a good note. I'm just so scared to even say anything. But anyways, Don Lewis was an interesting guy, to say the least. Okay, maybe not the kind of guy I would pick for a husband, but he met his wife when he was 17 years old and she was 13. Gladys was with her mom. They were buying groceries, and apparently it was love at first sight. A year later, they were married. So, not judging, I totally get that some time ago, being married in your, 13, 14 years old, it was totally a thing. So, you just have to understand that it was a different time. And they were in love. So, it only made sense for a young couple to be together. But he didn't have a great job. But he was a hard worker. So, and on top of that, he was a smart guy too. I mean, he started his own trucking business when he was super young. Then he got into real estate, like he would buy and sell properties for profit, of course. And he also believed in people. Like, he was the kind of guy that you'd want to have as a friend, somebody that didn't, check your maybe education, but if he believed that you were able to do that he needed, he would hire you. Like in the case of Anne McQueen, who really, excuse me, my voice it's kind of weird right now. We went through a cold spell and it was super warm and nice, and now it's kind of cold at night, and I think it's messing with a little cold I'm still dealing with, so excuse that. But anyways, so he met Anne McQueen, and he trained her to be his right hand, more in the finances side. So Anne would keep the books for him and for his multi-million-dollar business at this point. Now, this guy trusted her more than he trusted other people with his money, and he trained her. Even though I watched one of her interviews, she said that she only went, I think she finished the 8th grade or something like that, or she dropped out when she was in the 8th grade. Not 100% sure, but that was the kind of guy that he was. They also mentioned that he didn't look like a millionaire, okay? That he was a simple kind of guy, t-shirt and, jeans, and he didn't want to show off anything. He had a small trailer in an empty lot, and he would manage his business from there. He kept some money in the bank, like he did good money, so he obviously had his own bank account. But he was also known for burying money in jars under his barn. So, that interesting guy. I know somebody who does that. That's my husband. He is pretty weird about that. I don't know if I ever told you. I'm pretty sure I did. But for those of you who don't know, there was a weekend where I was cleaning the basement, and we had this really old TV that was inside like a piece of furniture. You probably remember what they look like. And I thought, well, we're using it like a table downstairs in the basement. And one day we were doing some spring cleaning, and there was a big container that they were going to pick up that day. And I thought, I am going to get rid of stuff. And I looked at that TV and I thought, well, you served us well for so many years, but it's time to go. I put it in the garbage. My husband gets home and I don't know why he went to the basement. He shouldn't have. I mean, he didn't have to go to the basement, but he did. And when he looked, and he was like, where's the TV? And I was like, what? I threw it away. Well, he was saving money there, so I can totally relate to this weird obsession of saving money in random places, especially cash, for whatever reason. And it wasn't, crazy amount, but apparently this guy had that habit too. So from that relationship, from Dawn and Gladys, they had 3 girls: Linda, Donna, and Gail. He was described by his daughters as a family guy. I mean, he was always home for dinner. He would always talk to the girls, supply whatever they needed, spend time with them. But according to his girls, he was also a little bit obsessed with animals, especially wild animals. They said that sometimes they would come home from school and they would find a baby alligator in their bathtub. They'd find ferrets, raccoons, even a penguin and a monkey. I mean, yeah, kind of weird. He also had other animals like cows and horses, but he liked wild animals. So that was all good. But when we start digging into his marriage and his relationship with Gladys, we realize that he is not the greatest husband in the world. He was unfaithful several times during their marriage, and they were married, I think I think it was 34 years that they were married. And she said that that she knew of, the guy had about 24 girls. Lovers, girlfriends, whatever you want to call them. And one night in 1981, Gladys and Don had this huge fight. I'm assuming it was because she probably caught him on something. She even said in one of the interviews that she had with 48 Hours that he was a good guy, a good father, and a good husband until she found, a girl. That's when he messed up. But overall, it was a good relationship. Like, he wasn't abusive. He was not a mean person. He was responsible with money. He was a provider. He was good to her. Like, it seemed like he loved her. But he just couldn't keep one lady. He had to have more than one. And that's when they started having, and that's when the problems would start. Because it was like every so many months, he would find a new girl and this big fight. So that particular night in 1981, Don leaves to go to his girlfriend's house. So, his lover's house. But as he was driving on a main street in Tampa, I don't remember, but it was like a busy street, he saw this girl that was crying. It was the middle of the night, or late at night, I should say. So he stopped his truck and she got in. Mind you, this teenage girl was Carole. She was a teenager still at the time. And Don was 42 years old. He picked her up. They talked and they spent the night together. Apparently after that, they continued these relationships for almost 10 years, and finally, in 1990, Gladys filed for divorce. She was done with him. He was spending so much time with this new girl, and I guess she was done with the relationship overall. Now, you have to understand that Carole was not a single girl. She was already married at the time, so she was younger. But she was already married, and apparently she was in some kind of a weird relationship. I don't know if it was abusive. I don't know what kind of relationship it was, but she was unhappy, and that's why she was crying that night. So in 1990, Gladys is like, I'm done. You go live your life, Don, and I'll live my own. And a year later, Don and Carole got married. And they started a new business because, this guy, he was good in anything that he started. And they bought these big cats. And I'm going to call them big cats because they had all kinds of cats. Like, not only tigers, but they had bobcats. And it was a big thing for them. And they started Wildlife on Easy Street, which is going to be the exhibit for showing these cats, big cats. And they were super excited about it. We already know that Don loved wild animals, but I think that they were both into wild animals in a different way. And I'll explain why in a little bit, okay? But after that first rush of being married, starting the business, apparently things started to go a little sour. And the relationship was not as good as it used to be. Shocker, right? You're the lover, kind of get into this guy who's married but looking for another girl. Now you marry the guy, and maybe he was into some other girl too, right? But it was so bad that Don decided to talk to Gladys and ask her to stay away from Carole and never to leave the girls alone with her. And it was one of those things that not only Gladys knew about it, but her daughters, at that point they had grandchildren and everything, and they were exposed to the new wife, right? After all, she married their dad. So it only made sense that if he wasn't feeling okay with a relationship, or if he felt that she was a little bit dangerous or maybe not good company, then he would tell them to stay away from her. Now, Don had all kinds of businesses, so he was planning to go to Costa Rica. And he was going to sell some used cars and trucks. He was working on the details, and the next day he had to call Anne McQueen, remember? One that's keeping the books. And to tell her I think he was going to share some big numbers, some information about the vehicles, and get done all the paperwork that needed to be done. But he never did. And according to Anne, he would call her every day or every other day if he wasn't in the office. So when he didn't call, she decided to call. And she called home, and Carole picked up. She said, well, he's not here, and I haven't seen him since yesterday. And this is the wife, right? So she even asked Anne, should I call the police? Apparently, it was still common for Don to disappear for a few days. Other ladies, I assume, so it wasn't 100% uncommon that he was missing in action. But it was weird. The whole conversation between Anne and Carole was a little bit awkward, and it could be because she thought that, the guy maybe left her for another girl, which is possible, I guess. So at that point, Don's daughters were worried because they knew that they were having some kind of problems in their marriage. I mean, he told them, and they knew that Don didn't trust Carole. They also knew that they were fighting over money and the animals themselves, because apparently Don, and this is why I said that they went into it looking into different things, but Don wanted to breed and sell the cats, and Carole wanted to make it into a sanctuary. So really, it was like they got into this business, and now they are fighting over what they're going to do with it. And the family also knew that he recently had an affair and wanted to get a divorce. So things were looking super bad for Don. I mean, the divorce would only mean money problems for Carole, so he was scared of Carole. Now all these things piling up, and really, the family was worried. And then Anne McQueen remembered that she had an envelope, a sealed envelope that Don gave her before disappearing, and he said, just keep it, and if something happens, just you'll figure it out. When he disappeared, she decided to open it, and apparently it was a court paper where Don was asking for a restriction order against Carole, but it was denied by the judge. Apparently he said that he asked for it because she would keep the guns, like she would hide the guns, his gun and her gun, and that she threatened him more than once. So she takes it. It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird because in that court paper, there's a bunch of things that he lists as, the things or the triggers or what, why he felt like he was in danger. So when Anne found this paper, when she opened this envelope, she decided to take it to the sheriff's department. And at that same time, the alarm went off in Don's office where Anne worked. So apparently, she later on learns that the people that broke into the office were Carole, her dad, and the handyman, Kenny Farr. Now, when Anne came back to the office, she realized that they took everything from her desk, including the power of attorney and the will that Don left behind. So it was a little bit suspicious. Now, they couldn't charge Carole with breaking in because she was the wife, but just the fact that she didn't have a key to the office and that she didn't have a way to get into important papers and that she didn't have a key to the gate for the office, it should tell you something of how much, her husband trusted. But I mean, you got married, you chose to marry this lady, and what's yours is mine, and what's mine is yours. So get over it, right? Even though he didn't trust her, that's the law. But things got weirder because Carole said that apparently she noticed that he was suffering from memory loss and even dementia, which his lawyer and the family said that he was completely fine, that they talked every day, and there was nothing like that. So it was interesting to know that she was kind of lying or making stories, which you think that only somebody guilty of something would do. And then 3 weeks after he disappeared, Carole canceled his cell phone service, which again, weird. Why would you do that? Okay, so your husband, who you're claiming, is mentally ill, or I don't even know. She claims so many things. Like, okay, let's say he had dementia. And the only way that he has to call you is a cell phone. Why would you disconnect it 3 weeks after? Wouldn't you be waiting for it? A call or something? She gave so many excuses. She said so many things about Don that really, it made her look terrible. But then she came up with the idea that maybe he was arrested in Mexico. His van was eventually found near an airport where he kept his planes. And he was a pilot, but he was not a magician. I mean, people believe that, maybe he got into a plane and went to Costa Rica, and the kind of plane that he would fly would only take you 700 miles away without having to refuel. He would have to actually stop 4 different times to refuel, and there's no evidence of that. So that went out the window pretty quickly. Then some other people say that maybe he was taken to the plane and somebody, I don't know, pushed him out of a plane. It didn't make sense. I can explain why that wouldn't make sense, but that theory would take us nowhere. On August of 1997, Carole recorded a series of videos with herself reading her diary of the time that her husband went missing. And she mentions that he used to disappear for a few days, so she wasn't really worried, and she thought that the police would be called for no particular reason because he would eventually come back. She mentions that he left the power of attorney and the will, and everything was left for her. But even though some people believe that, she actually took it from the office and forged the signature on something completely different. Now, there are 3 different experts that said that the signature there in the will, really, it's not, it was forged, basically. And they believe that whoever forged it actually took the signature from their marriage license and traced it on top. She got it authenticated though, so 3 experts against 1, I guess. Then we learn about Kenny Farr. This is something more recent because this guy was a handyman. Remember the one that went with Carole to break in his office, Don's office? Well, that's Kenny, and apparently he was Don's right hand at the sanctuary, and he was married to this girl. Her name is Trish. Now, Trish testified 3 years after, really, that 2 days before Don disappearing, Kenny went home with a bunch of guns and that she helped put away in their home. When she asked, why so many guns? Why did you get this from? And blah, blah, blah. He said that he was hanging on to them for Carole and that Don was gone. Then he brought a freezer, and he kept this freezer in the porch with a padlock and stayed there for about a week after Dawn disappearing. Then they had a fight, and she said that Kenny threatened her to put her in the meat grinder just like Dawn. She didn't tell this to the police immediately, which would have helped, really. But she said that she was scared for her children's lives and for herself. She thought that he could hurt her, and she actually stayed with him after that for 3 years. But after she left him, or they got divorced, because I really don't know how it worked that, but she said she went to the police department and she told them all about this that she experienced. And when they questioned him, he said that was an outlandish lie, and that he even said that he took a polygraph and cooperated with the police at the time. I mean, it was 3 years later. Now, on August 19th of the year 2002, Carole asked the judge to declare Dawn dead. This was 5 years after he vanished. Then she got married to Jake Bakel, and he, too, was afraid of her. And he even tried to get a restraining order against her again. It was denied. He said that he asked Carole, what if your husband came back and we're married or together, and she would say, dead body cannot talk. Well, I thought that it could go both ways, because it really can mean that she killed him and that she knew that he wasn't going to come back. But maybe it's just because the judge declared him dead, and that's why they got married and they got together. But okay, let's move on to 2004, because this Carole lady, she was not one of those girls that would dwell on things. Because in 2004, she met this guy, Carole Baskin. There, her last name, right? They got married at the beach, and it wasn't romantic. It was an awkward and little weird wedding. I'm not gonna judge too much, but I truly believe that it was a super weird wedding. I mean, I don't know if this is in the documentary or not, but I'll paint you a picture. Apparently, Howard was wearing a tiger pattern toga, and he was pretending to be a caveman, okay? He had a plastic bat, and she hit him in the head with it. There's pictures of this, okay? There's a picture where he picked her up and then put her on his shoulder, then put her down, and then there's another picture where she's carrying him with a leash. I mean, it's all good. I mean, whatever you choose to do in your wedding, that's your day. You should do whatever the heck you want, but you have to agree that it's not one of those romantic weddings that you see on Instagram or Pinterest. It was not. But it's okay if they wanted to do that. I think it's only fair that they get it. And Howard, really, he is a smart man, okay? He had an MBA and a law degree. So, I mean, he was the kind of guy that would take her business into the next level, okay? They changed the name to Big Cat Rescue, and they got a bunch of money from donations, really, because he knew the right contacts. I mean, he had the right contacts. He knew the right people that would want to make business with them. And their mission changed because it was no more breeding, okay, which was what Dawn wanted to do. There was no more buying big cats. Now the goal was to end the trade of big cats. And there was this interview. I don't know if it was on Fox or where it was, but there was this interview where she talked to this with this lady, and she was saying that that nobody should own a cat, not even her, and that she said that her goal was to stop people from buying these animals and hopefully put herself out of business. So if people weren't buying this kind of animals, she wouldn't have a sanctuary. So in just a few words, she became a animals right advocate. So, and what happens when you're loud and outspoken? Well, you find people to start fights with, or they find you, right? In this case, it was a Joe Schreibogle. Gosh, I'm probably butchering it. Let's call him Joe Exotic. That's how he, Tiger King was his nickname, and he was basically an exotic animal owner, and he was in Oklahoma. In 2010, she tried to stop him from taking cats to malls all around America, and basically to stop profiting from taking these cubs to take pictures with people and charge for those pictures. He was making a business for himself and he was making money, and she really was not all about it. So he fought back actually, and even tried to take her rescue name, which I thought, you're just asking for trouble, okay? He wanted to change his name to her name, for the business. And the Big Cat Rescue, I had to find it in my notes because for just a second I couldn't remember. But she filed a lawsuit like any person in their right mind would do. And he was ordered to pay Carole almost $1 million. But listen, Joe Exotic, the guy was quote unquote famous online, and he had his following, but he had no money. And he was no there's a clip of him saying that he was so poor that he had to use a file cabinet as a dresser. I don't know, the guy is hilarious in those videos. You think that he's in character, but maybe he is a character. I don't know what to think about him, but anyways, he started, he always had this YouTube channel where he would share everything that he wanted. And right now, he was sharing how he felt about Carole. And in one of, it escalated to the point that he started saying that one night she snuck up on her husband and that she killed him. He was kind of making a show out of it, like he was trying to, pretend that he was Carole, and and then he makes this other video with I think it's some kind of a mannequin or something, and I don't know, he was okay. In one of those videos, let me put my thoughts together. In one of the videos, there is this, I'm gonna call it a doll, but this whatever fake that looked like it was hanging, and it was pretending that it was Carole, basically killing herself. And then there was this other one where he was shooting this doll in the head. It got creepy, believe me. I think he's a character, but he was also becoming very, very creepy. So anyways, he started to threaten her in the videos, sometimes directly, some other ones indirectly, until it got to the point that he made a music video. And if you haven't watched it, you have to watch it, because if that's the one thing that we get out of this, at least a good laugh after that video, that it's so DIY, so not professional. And basically in that video he sings this song, and he's saying that, I think it was somebody else's song, not song but voice, I read somewhere, not 100% sure, but apparently in that video he was sharing the idea that she actually killed her husband and fed him to the tigers. Again, if you haven't watched it, you have to look it up, because it's quite telling before you make up your mind. So in the year 2019, we're closer to 2020 by now, but in the year 2019, he ended up being convicted of hiring a hitman to kill Carole, and he got 22 years. So he wasn't as harmless as he seemed on those YouTube videos. In the documentary Tiger King, Carole looks terribly guilty. Apparently, that's the conclusion of most people after watching that documentary. And of course, even if you haven't watched Tiger King, you probably heard terrible things about Carole Baskin, and probably a name that you learn or that you got to know in 2020, but maybe you don't even know what she looks like. But let me tell you that the Netflix documentary, in the end, because of how they were sharing the facts and omitting some other things, it made her seem like she actually did that. Like Joe Exotic really had a point, and that she probably got rid of her husband and fed him to the tigers. And it really got this new interest in solving Don's disappearance. So it was good. This documentary was basically showing what happened to Tiger King, but it opened another can of worms, really, where Carole was being looked at in a different angle. So if you think about it, why would a healthy and successful person leave his life behind? Yeah, we do know that he was having trouble with Carole, but we also know that he had no problem having, a divorce and moving on with other people. So why would he leave all his money behind to the person that actually was scaring him? It just doesn't make sense. But Carole explained, okay, and let me tell you these things because I think are important to know, that the meat grinders that everyone is talking about were removed from the property weeks before Don disappeared. Okay, so, and this is confirmed by the police, which means squat. Really, sorry, but if she did it, she could have taken the body somewhere else and get it done somewhere else. Is that even possible? Can you even do that? I don't know. I don't really care, I guess. I'm assuming the police must know this information, but it seems terrible, gruesome. Ugh, I don't know. I don't even know what to think about it. But anyways, so she said that Kenny, the handyman, had nothing to do with it. I mean, he was just a good guy that worked for them. And she said that the guns were taken to his place not 2 days before Don disappeared, but 2 weeks after. She said that she couldn't get a restraining order because these guys couldn't get a restraining order against her because she was not dangerous. I mean, and that she broke into the office before the papers disappeared. She thought that somebody was going to try to mess with them, and that's why she broke into the office. And then she goes ballistics, and she said that she believes that behind the disappearance of Don is Gladys, who... I mean, you have to watch the interview that she had with 48 Hours. She is a fierce Southern lady. I mean, she is fierce. And she'll tell you like it is. I mean, it seems like she's a pretty straightforward lady. She can't believe that, Carole is saying that she was the one that had something to do with Don's disappearance after, he divorced her and, cheated so many times on her. Why would she feel the need to do that now that he was unhappily married with the lady that took her took him away from her. I'm like, that's if I was Gladys and I knew that my ex-husband was having a terrible time with this new wife who was the lady that he was cheating on me with, I don't know. I think I don't want to say that I'd enjoy it, seeing it happen, but I wouldn't be against it. And I think that killing somebody, it just doesn't make sense. So she said that Don told her, okay, and this is the one person that Don told, that apparently Gladys tried to kill him 3 different times during their marriage, which maybe she threatened to kill him, because, I mean, he was a cheater after all and making her life miserable every time he cheated. But I think that she stayed because she actually loved him. And I just think that when you get married young, I don't know, maybe she stayed with him for way too long. But I don't think, I don't believe this, but it's possible, and she said it. Now, at this point, if you wonder where Carole is, let me tell you, Carole is a superstar now, okay? Now she blamed it all on Gladys, it's not happy with it. And actually, I think Gladys, her daughters, somebody else, who was this other person? Oh, Anne. They hired this lawyer who's basically working on a lawsuit for defamation. So, okay, if you were feeling bad about Gladys, believe me, she's a fierce lady. I'm sure she'll be on top of this. So, but let's talk about Carole Baskin. Have you seen her? Apparently, she was in Dancing with the Stars, and I didn't watch it. I don't get Air TV here, so I can't. I missed it. I really wanted to watch it because I listened to this podcast. It's called The Sesh. It's with Kendall Ray and her cousin Janelle, and they were talking about, like, the intro. They were talking about, Carole being in, I guess it's Dancing with the Stars. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this she was doing this ridiculous, the most ridiculous dances. They were all tiger or lions, or I don't know, something related to that, which I thought it was pretty funny. And they would put clips, and really, I just couldn't believe that. But I mean, she is so famous now. Like, Carole Baskin, if you mention her name in 2019, people would be like, Carole who? No, well, now Carole Baskin is a celebrity. So much so that she charges almost $300 for a birthday message, like the big celebrities do. I mean, that's how important she is now in 2020. We knew that 2020 was going crazy, but I think it's taking it to a new level with this lady. So, and there's even this, I think, was it on 48 Hours? I think I heard that they're working on a Joe Exotic show where Nicolas Cage is going to be Joe Exotic. So I can't wait for that. Now, Don's family hired a lawyer again, and they're suing Carole for defamation. Because apparently everything that she says on YouTube or in social media, it's basically trashing, Don's family, his daughters and ex-wife. Now again, this is all the information that I have on this case. And I think the big lesson here, do you want a big lesson today, is if Netflix ever approaches you and they're like, let me do a documentary on your life, unless you have the power to say yes in the end or no, do not share this crap, don't do it. I mean, I wouldn't. They'd be like, hey, let me do a documentary about this of your life. I'll be like, no thanks. We're gonna throw you $5 billion in your face. No thanks. I mean, goodness gracious. they always pick somebody to frame as the bad guy in every single documentary and leave a lot of evidence that point at that person. But I'm not saying that you shouldn't watch these documentaries. I'm just saying that if you ever leave a documentary thinking, he did it, and you know exactly who did it, well, do a little bit of research. Put the name online, search up the case, read about, different articles, things that the police shared, because more than likely you'll find another angle that they didn't explore because it didn't fit their narrative. Does that mean that they're lying and they're, because they never tell you, oh, we do believe that this and this was the one. No, they don't, because otherwise they'd be sued. But in order to sell something, you have to find a way to sell it to people. And you know what sells? Conspiracies and different things like that. That you feed this information into people's brains, hoping that they will come back to you with a theory that actually you put it there in the first place. Which bothers me, it really does. But I still watch the documentaries and do a whole lot of research after that, because they always share this part of the story, and they always kind of narrate it in a way that fits what they want to portray. And I like to use my brain. As long as I can use it, I like to use it myself. So I like to get the details and then make up my own mind. Again, the mystery theory, right? So this was one of those cases that, the documentary made Carole Baskin look like a terrible person, and like she did in fact feed, the tigers, Dawn to the tigers. But did she really? I mean, if you watch her videos, if you follow her on social media, she is I don't even know how to say it. She's a character. Like she's animated. She's like, when you look at her, you see something different. You don't see everyday kind of person, or the kind of person that we're used to seeing on social media. Or she is, I wouldn't call it weird, but in a good way, like, you different. And she's not shy about things that she likes. She doesn't care if it's popular or it's not popular. So I don't know, it fits the narrative that she did it, because she was the one who had to get the most out of this. I mean, Dawn disappearing, it fits the narrative. But I think a lot of people is making fun of her because the way she is. And maybe it's only a persona that she's putting out there, and she's not really that way, Maybe she's dangerous, but she makes it seem that it's fun and giggly and different. I don't know. Again, this is an unsolved mystery that I wanted to share with you, because I think there's more sides of that same coin that we've been seeing on social media and Netflix. And I think that looking at this from a different angle can help us see things differently, explore different theories. And we're not detectives, and yes, we're not going to fix this. And no, we're not going to close this case and find the one responsible, because that's not our job. But I think that my job here is to share with you and leave you thinking, using your own brain, using your own experiences, your own emotions, and coming up with whatever you think happened here. Let me know if you watched the documentary. Let me know what you thought about it. And if you're watching the replay on Wednesday on YouTube, I'll leave a comment down below. I would love to know what you think about this whole thing. I hope you join me for the month of November. I have, again, a bunch of new interesting cases that I've researched recently that you guys requested, and I'm excited to share with you. As always, I hope you found this interesting, informative, that I'm going to leave you thinking and coming up with your own conclusions. This is the kind of case that really, got me into true crime, this unsolved mysteries, and these things that, in the end, you don't really know what happened, but you can always hope that one day we will. Thank you for being here, guys, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.